Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We're live and national. Happy to be here. It's truly a blessing. Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And Letitia James has been indicted. That's the big story of the day. I know a lot of people very excited about this. A lot of people have been waiting for justice to be done. And, of course, Letitia James striking back with her own comment. I'll play that in a moment. But a grand jury indicting the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, on charges of fraud. I don't know, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock this afternoon, something like that. This happened, and that's great. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we had James Comey. Now you've got the Attorney General. And all the press can talk about is how Trump is going after his political enemies. That's it. It's funny, when they went after Trump, it was, no one is above the law. No one, right? But when they go after these people for, what they've done, it's Trump being a fascist. The double standard is palpable. But what are you going to do? Now, I'm reading this one from Breitbart, a source close to the matter. I'm not always into these anonymous sources, but somebody leaked to the Associated Press on Thursday that James was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia on one count after a mortgage fraud investigation. And this person spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to publicly discuss the matter, which means they're illegally leaking the information. I just like to make that distinction very clear. What the Democrats always do. So now looks like we're doing it on both sides. And honestly, that's just the way you fight in Washington, right? They do this, you do that. The case has been kept under seal as of the report being issued a couple hours ago. Let's see, anything else that we need to know here? Oh, well, it says that there's no comment. She has commented. I have the audio clip of Letitia James. Mr. Good, let her rip.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding. All because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me.
Now, I just want to say, every time the Democrats come and say it's because he's weaponizing the government, it's retribution, he's coming after us, is there a single person, right? Is Pam Bondi saying, you know what, guys, I'm quitting because Trump is putting so much pressure on me. And let me tell you, I can't take the pressure. This is wrong. This isn't justice. This is fascism. Has anybody heard that? Nope, she hasn't said it. I don't know. Anybody else? I don't see anybody quitting, saying that they're leaving in protest. I know somebody got fired recently because they were dragging their feet. That's very different than saying, look, I'm out of here. If it bothered them that much, they would have quit. Right? I think that's typically what people don't like something enough, right? They say, I'm out of here. Or you could always say, you know what, I'm not doing it, and let them fire you. But there's no line of people. There is no line of people saying that Donald Trump, at least in the Department of Justice establishment, nobody's there saying I'm leaving or I'm quitting or whatever because Trump is forcing us to do these things that are wrong. No, I don't hear anybody saying that except the Democrats. What does that tell you? Go ahead.
And replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence, not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his two sons are liable for fraud.
That, again, Letitia James. So, Letitia James, they have evidence that you lied about this, that you said that your spouse was actually somebody that was your father, and that you committed some sort of mortgage fraud here. What do you have to say? I stand by the investigation that I did into Trump. That's great, ma'am. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you. Isn't it funny how she deflects? And the other thing about her I find interesting, Letitia James, she's so dramatic, right? She reminds me of when I was a kid, I was really big into something called WWF, not the World Wildlife Foundation, but back then it was called the World Wrestling Federation. And WWF was great. Now they call it WWE. And professional wrestling, sports entertainment, fantastic. I love the storylines. I love the acting. I love all of it. And she's like a wrestler. She sounds like a wrestler cutting a promo, because Donald Trump and his two sons are going to pay the price. And they're going to see me in the ring at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 4000, right? I mean, that's what it sounded like to me. She's just so comical. I can't get enough of her, honestly. Some people are sick of her. I think she keeps me in business. Her, AOC, there's a few of them that I don't get tired of hearing them do their thing. Anyway, so that's what's going on there. Other updates that you already know, likely. The government's still shut down. How are you doing? Everybody making it through? I think so. I think everybody's going to be okay. And what else do we got? Still peace, right? We still have some peace. Matter of fact, earlier today, it was a big moment. I screenshotted this on my cell phone. I went to the Drudge Report. Now, I don't know if you know, in recent years, Drudge went from being a conservative Republican to a Trump-hating leftist ally, sadly. And the above the Drudge Report headline was this. There's a couple here, but they were all interrelated. It's a woman with a flag, Israeli flag over her head, looking up to the heavens and screaming, like exclaiming, proclaiming. And here's the headline. Hostages coming home. That's the first one. Trump to receive relief and caution. Next headline. Hamas says, war over. I never thought that I would see Drudge do that. I would have imagined the Drudge headline would have been something like, Hamas eerily silent, kind of foreshadowing that the war is not over. Trump to receive relief now. It would be Trump, caution. Trump, has done this before. And hopefully the hostages come home. That type of thing. Because they want to poo-poo anything they can that President Trump did. And it's sad, but today I said, you know what? This is victory, right? Not because Drudge said it, but because Drudge had no choice but to say it. Meaning they tried to pursue every angle they could, and they couldn't. So because they could not crap on this, there was some other lefty guy out there, I saw him on the news, and he was saying, Donald Trump has achieved what no other president, Democrat or Republican, has achieved in, I don't know, in like our modern lifetimes for, people our age. And I thought, yeah, I've seen him do that on a multiple occasions, not just with peace, right? I think this is probably just the most glaring thing. Eventually, I think we're going to, see some movement with the Russia and Ukraine conflict. And, of course, they will try and say, no, that was just Putin got tired. Putin got tired of being at war, and Trump capitalized on it, saying he had something to do with it. I understand that these things are nuanced and they're difficult. But I have to say, this stuff requires, in my opinion, it requires strength, it requires leadership, it requires wherewithal, and a lot of political prowess. You have to be able to pull things off, right? You've got to be able to maneuver with people that are your allies, that people aren't your allies, get your enemy to work with your ally. Not easy, and a lot of people don't have the political courage to do it. They'd rather just pass the buck and say, you know what, let's just do this or let's do that. Trump does what he thinks is right, not for his own benefit, but because that's truly what's best for America. And I really think because he is a pacifist at heart, because it's really what's best for most people. And that's something that you got to respect that. So kudos to El Trompito. Those Nobel Peace Prizes are coming your way. If those people are worth the salt, if they're worth any salt, you'll be getting a couple of those, in my opinion. Anyway, straight ahead, we're going to talk about the news of the day. We're going to talk about what's going on in Washington, what's up with this shutdown, and I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Jersey. That race is heating up. Jack Ciattarelli and Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. I would say right now, it doesn't look good for her. Doesn't look good. Anyway, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
As you know, last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there, and we're working on the timing, the exact timing. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me, but we're going to have an official signing. And the amazing thing is all of the countries over there, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia to UAE to all of them, I mean, the rich ones, the less than rich ones, they've all come together, something which is amazing, actually. They've all come together for this, and they're really probably the best relationships they've ever had. So it's been really something incredible that nobody thought it was possible to get it done.
That, of course, President Trump at the cabinet meeting earlier today announcing that this war is over. And again, not hearing too much pushback from the left, which is a good thing. They're moving on to other things like the weaponization of the government against Trump's enemies and whatnot. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the government shutdown. I'm doing okay. I know that there's people rooting for the government to get back open, but a good part of me is kind of like, hey, listen, let it drag out. Let's get to that 60th day and let Trump drain the swamp with reduction in force notices. But let's see what happens. It's all in the Democrats' court. I want to bring in our guest. I call him the Jersey Shore Congressman. He represents the 2nd District of New Jersey, where as a kid I grew up going down there all the time. Congressman Jeff Van Drew, welcome, sir.
Oh, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. So I want to jump into this. Obviously, you guys are still out there doing what you do despite the partial government shutdown. And what's the vibe like, where you are with respect to this big, huge announcement that there's literally peace in the Middle East? And I feel like a lot of people just don't believe it.
Well, I knew it was going to come. I had faith in the president. He knew exactly what he was doing, and it was a little bumpy. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, but
right.
Here's the deal, Rich, and it's always the truth. When you are weak, you create war. When you are strong, you will have peace. It's just, it's the rule. It's the rule of the world. It's been the rule throughout history. And, none of this would have happened, whether it is Ukraine and Russia or whether it's the Mideast, if, quite frankly, President Trump had been the president and if we had a Republican Congress. And I don't mean to sound so partisan, but it's the real world. It was so weak under Biden, and it just everything he did, even if you look at the Mideast, he unfroze assets for Iran at the time. He was helping Iran. He basically was allowing them to go with uranium enrichment and nuclear proliferation. We don't want them to have nuclear weapons. And so he seemed weak, which then mobilizes those forces that would do evil to think that they can get away with it. And quite frankly, if Joe Biden was still the president, or if she had become president, we would be still floating around trying to get it done. It wouldn't be done. It would be weaker than ever. All kinds of things would have been happening. Bottom line is peace through strength, war through weakness. President Trump has been strong. He's been clear. He's stuck with Israel, but he's made it clear that he wanted this to end. And I believe this Congress feels, the majority of us feel the same way. It is a great day for America. It's a great day for freedom. It's a great day for Israel and the Mideast, because this is going to really proliferate even more good things happening. There are many countries that really do want to see another Abraham Accords, that want to see peace spreading, that want to have more trade with the United States and rest of the world, that want to see great things happen. We have tremendous potential here. We really do. I really am just so happy to see this and hear it. And of course, our detractors, those that are, the political, on the other side of the political spectrum, they're not going to say anything, because you really just can't say anything bad about releasing hostages and creating peace. So they're going to say nothing and just try to divert the attention to everything else. And the media can't ignore it. But again, the legacy media won't make as much of it as they should. My God, if this was Kamala Harris doing this, or Joe Biden, or, anybody else, Barack Obama, they would be talking about this 24/7. They're not going to be as loud about it and talk about it as much, but they can't avoid it, because this is going to change world history.
Really well put. Not only we're changing world history, but what you said was really the mantra, right? Peace through strength, war through weakness. I think that is really, really well put. Now, other thing I want to get you to touch on is this clip. It's a pretty short clip, number 11. Let her rip.
And we'll be making cuts that will be permanent. And we're only going to cut Democrat programs. I hate to tell you. I guess that makes sense. But we're only cutting Democrat programs. But we're going to start that, and we have.
So President Trump in the cabinet meeting also saying, if we have to make cuts, we're going to make cuts. And guess what? We're starting with Democrat programs. I love it. He's a man after my own heart, because he's playing their game, Congressman.
He is, and he's playing hard because he wants to get this done. This is a travesty, what's going on. The House of Representatives, the Republicans, the majority, did their job. For folks listening, really understand here. Most folks know what a CR is, a continuing resolution, obviously, that are involved with government. But folks that are listening that aren't as sure, it is a little mini budget for a number of weeks, so you can continue to work on and develop a spending plan, appropriations bills, however you're going to do it in the end, to have, obviously, the money that you need to function in government. This CR, this little mini budget that we did, has no Trump stuff in it. It has no congressional stuff in it. It has nothing that is negative in it. It is a simple continuation. Chuck Schumer has voted for this many, many times over and over again. It's routine. And the fact that they're not doing it now is because he's in a corner, and so is Hakeem Jeffries.
Congressman, stand by right there with that thought on Hakeem Jeffries. Folks, we're coming right back with Jeff Van Drew.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. I want to continue our conversation with Congressman Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey. And before I find out what's going on back in the district, I want to know, A, I want him to finish his point, and B, his outlook on what's going on with the government shutdown. And we left off at a critical point because Congressman was making a really valid point about the importance of understanding how Republicans did their job. Not once, not twice, 3 times they presented a clean CR, and 3 times the Democrats voted against it. At least 3 times that I know of. There might be more. And this is an ugly place that we've landed. And Congressman, you were telling us about the reaction that we're getting now from Hakeem Jeffries, who literally is playing fast and loose, not only with the truth, but with the lives of the federal workers, their livelihood, and every American that's going to be impacted by this closure as it goes on.
Absolutely. And that was my point. Hakeem and Schumer are in a corner because if they cooperate, which is the normal course of business, this is routine. This is nothing unusual in a continuing resolution. They normally would sign on board, and then we would go into debating the issues, healthcare, whatever they are, budgets, etc., in a normal way. But they can't do that because last time they cooperated, particularly Schumer, when Schumer cooperated, the Hakeem did not because he was in the House. But when Schumer cooperated and got it across the finish line, he was in big trouble. His leadership was threatened. He was told that he was in trouble because he agreed to work with the Republicans on what was a routine housekeeping resolution, but an important one. So he couldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He knows better. Chuck Schumer knows better. He's been around a long time. He knows that he should vote for this CR. The CR is all we can do right now. Now they're trying to make this artificial relationship between the health care issues and the tax credits for health care and link that to doing the CR. This is a clean CR. It has nothing to do with that. The CR exists so that you can have that debate and that discussion. Bottom line is the Democrats have been doing lots of weird things, everything from open borders to what they've done with USAID, where we have drag queen shows were going on around the world, what they've done to our children, and, in schools I don't even want to go into it all because I know we don't have the time. This is one more weird and bizarre thing they're doing, shutting down government, hurting their own people. It's wrong. It's a wrong thing to do, and I'm really profoundly disappointed in them. But he doesn't have the leadership skills, evidently, Schumer, to say, you know what, I'm going to do the right thing, and if you want to threaten me or take away my leadership position, so be it, because I'm going to do the right thing for the country. He won't do that.
It's no wonder you jumped ship from the Democrat Party and came over to the Republican Party because they have been progressively getting worse.
It's unbelievable. And we could talk about this for an hour, and I know we don't have that time. It's really become weird, bizarre, perverse. I'll try to capsulize this. Think about This is a party that absolutely wanted open borders. The minute Trump got in, we closed the borders. Yep. Biden could have done that any day of the week that he wanted to. He wouldn't do it. And, always some illegals did dribble into the country, but they opened it up wide. But here's the really bad part of it, Rich. They knew that some of these people were drug lords. Mm-hmm. They knew that they were drug distributors. They knew that some of them were on the terror watch list. They knew that some of them had committed crimes or had been indicted and convicted of the country of origin. They didn't care. They put them out into the streets. How weird and perverse and bizarre is that?
Yeah, and they had to know that the kids weren't related to those people.
They did know, and we don't even know where tens of thousands of these kids are. And then you look at what they're doing to our cities. And, I took the committee out, and we went to the committee that I chair, my subcommittee on oversight and judiciary, actually out to North Carolina to where that horrible, horrible crime occurred in Charlotte, where that young Ukrainian girl was murdered. That guy was let out by liberal prosecutors and liberal judges and liberal magistrates 14 times.
Wow.
And there was a gentleman that testified there in Charlotte. His poor daughter, this man cried like a baby in front of us, an adult male. He lost his baby girl, this young girl who was in college. She was pulled out of her bed by this murderer, this bastard. He stripped her clothes off, made her get down on her knees in front of him on the floor. Don't even want to talk about what happened then. And then when that was done, he took a shotgun to her chest and murdered her. He would have been out. He had been gone through 49 different charges, and they still let him out just because he signed a note that he said he would be okay. We have to stop the cashless bail. We have to stop letting people out who are known felons and really committing evil and atrocious assaults and violent acts against people. Is that insane? Again, it's weird, it's bizarre, it's perverse. Real quickly, what we were doing with USAID. In foreign countries, we were paying for drag queen shows, doing studies of prostitution and their clients, prostitutes and their clients in Nepal, having transgender opera in Colombia. Rich, I'm not making it up. I can show it to you in the budgets. They were doing all this stuff. You couldn't make it up. It's weird. It's a purposeful effort to actually diminish the United States of America from this exceptional country just to another country in the world that is not great. And we refuse to accept that.
That is so sad. Folks, we're on with Congressman Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey. And Congressman, before you go, I want to get your take on things that are seemingly heating up in New Jersey. I'm feeling a red wave coming our way. I live in Bergen County now, and I can tell you that people keep asking me, how are we doing? They all feel good about this election. How do you feel? And tell us what's going on.
We're doing good. And look, I've been around for a long. I've only been 7 years in Congress, but I was a state senator in New Jersey, a state assemblyman, a county commissioner, and even a mayor of my little town. And I think I can kind of read things. I'm telling you, the momentum is for Jack Ciattarelli. She didn't do well in the debate. She's not a good candidate. And people don't want more of Murphy. Hurt us in so many ways. Think about New Jersey, this amazing state. And I know Bergen County well. I grew up in North Jersey till I was 16 years old.
Okay.
And I went to college up in North Jersey and dental school. I'm a dentist by profession. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, even in North Jersey, people don't have the fire in their belly that they often do for Democrats. They're tired of it. They're tired of their
100%. That's true.
Their utility, right, Rich? You're tired of your utility bills going way up. You're tired of your taxes going way up. You're tired of being a sanctuary state. You're tired of the tolls and fees and costs of everything going up, the car insurance going up. It's just across the board, and everything is more expensive, and it isn't that it's better. And you know what's the worst of it? Since I was in the legislature 7 years ago to now, the budget has almost doubled in the state.
So is my car
Jersey.
Insurance.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Car insurance is another one. And, you know, a lot of schools got cut. Small schools, because the Democrats didn't like small schools. They cut the small schools a lot. So they've increased how expensive everything is across the board, and at the same time, cut the things you need, like a decent education. And by the way, in education, Jack Ciattarelli on day one, I believe, is going to stop and do an executive order. These school districts where they're teaching kids that they can change their name, their sexual orientation, their pronouns without telling their parents. It's bizarre. It's weird. I don't know what else to call it. I call it as it is. I think people have had enough.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I'm hearing a lot about a big event coming out of your neck of the woods to promote Jack's candidacy and to bring us through the finish line. Tell us about it.
Oh, we're going to have fun. We're doing, as you know, I've brought the president twice to the Wildwoods. It won't be the president, but we're going to have Jack. I'm going to be there. Chairman Donahue is one of the county chairs, actually, all the way down in South Jersey in Cape May County. And we're going to be back in the Wildwoods again. We're going to be in North Wildwood this time. We're going to have a great rally. We're going to fire everybody up. We are going to speak about how great New Jersey can be, how great the United States of America is, that we are an exceptional nation, and to get New Jersey on a new track and to go in a better direction. So we're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of good people. You know, I was President Trump's campaign chair for the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
And we had that big rally in Wildwood. This won't be as big as that, but it's going to be really wonderful. We had over 100,000 people at that, and this is going to capture that same energy. We're going to have some other good people speaking as well. Just good people getting together that love America and love New Jersey.
Oh, amen to that. And Congressman Jeff Van Drew, I just want to let you know, we have a lot of Valdez VIP listeners. We're on 1400 WOND. We're on WEEU on South Jersey. And I want to put a call out to everybody out there. Make sure you're at this rally. Tell everybody where they go and how they could support.
Absolutely. So it is going to be tomorrow. And let me make sure I give you the exact right time here. Hold on 1 second. It is going to start at 4 o'clock, and it's going to go to 7 o'clock in North Wildwood.
Outstanding. Well, make sure you're there, amigos, patriots, familia. Make sure you're there supporting Jack Ciattarelli and being there alongside Congressman Van Drew. Sir, I want to thank you for being with us. Thank you for everything you're doing. You've been pulling your load and more, and we see it in Jersey. Thank you, sir.
Rich, we appreciate you, and Jersey's a great state, and we can do and accomplish great things, and I really think that's going to happen, and you're a part of it. You know, you getting the word out, you having this wonderful show where people can hear the truth and what's going on and really what's happening, and to give people hope. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. God bless you, and God bless America. Amen. And God bless New Jersey.
You got it.
Congressman Jeff Van Drew.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. And amigos, we're coming right back. Your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, everything that's on your mind. I'm looking to hear about what's on your mind tonight. Straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And to the phones we go. What a good guy that Jeff Van Drew. I got to tell you, I really took a liking to him when he became a Republican. And not because I'm partisan, and I'm not saying I'm not, but it was really because of what he did, right? He really said, no, I'm not going to vote against Trump during impeachment. And he sided with the Republicans. And that to me was, probably a politically savvy move for him. But it was also a politically dangerous move for him because of all the friends he'd made that he was about to alienate in the Democrat Party. But he did what he had to do, right? At some point, you have to do what is right. And I believe Jeff Van Drew did that. So kudos to the congressman. I'm glad he did what he did, and he's continuing to do it. Let's go to the phones. Denise is calling us. She's from Atlantic City. She spent some time up north in Ridgefield as well. She listens on WOND 1400 out of Atlantic City. Denise, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was hoping to say hello, but your call screener, I guess, didn't get the message that I knew him.
There's a good chance he's probably still listening.
What's that? He comes to our American Legion post in Summers Point, and I know him from there. But he's a great person. He works for people. He has an office in Northfield, and which is not too far from Atlantic City. And when you need something, it gets done. His people take care of it.
Well, that's great. There's nothing better than an office that works well. I did an internship many years ago, more than 20 years ago, in the office of Congressman Scott Garrett, who at the time I think was either the number one or the number two most conservative member of Congress. It was a great experience. You learned a lot, and that office ran like a well-oiled machine. When constituents came in and needed something, they got it done. They got answers. Matter of fact, a little story for you, Denise, and you probably know this name, and a lot of people probably know this name. The director of that office was a guy named Rich Zeoli. And Rich Zeoli now is a big, super famous radio host out of Philly on WPHT. So, small world, right?
Yes. And I just got word today that I'm the preliminary and interim Fort Lee historian.
Oh, wonderful. Are you having a big ceremony?
Well, no, not yet. I have to go through another process. The work session approved me, and I'm excited because I'm born and raised in Fort Lee, and I'm there every morning at the VFW post, and we have coffee, and it's a great town. I was born and raised there.
Well,
So.
let me always thank you for your service, Denise, not only to this country in uniform, but to your community and everything that you're doing. They couldn't have a better historian in Fort Lee. Congratulations. And again, when the public ceremony happens, I'm not far from there. I'd love to go. So congrats to you, Denise. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a pause right here, and we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come right back to Idaho and Clifton, Virginia, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Let's go to Clifton, Virginia, WMAL. Check in with Doug. Doug, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rich, listen, I am an enormous supporter of President Trump. I think he's amazing. But it gets me a little bit nervous when people are declaring victory before the deal is done and the transaction has occurred. Many things can go wrong. They say there's 20 live hostages. Let's say there's only 10 live hostages. Let's say they're completely physically destroyed when they're released. What happens then? What happens if Hamas has a stunt to destroy the deal? They say, oh, the Israelis did something, and therefore we're not going to follow through. You might say, well, why would they do that? Trump would unleash the Israeli military. But it goes back to the old fable of why does the scorpion kill the frog in the middle of the lake, knowing when the frog dies, it drowns. Because it's in the nature of the scorpion to do these things, and it's in the nature of Hamas to do these things. This is the Middle East after all. So the thing is this. It's as the ex-politician, the old politician from Israel, Abba Eban, said, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So while I'm optimistic, I'm very cautiously optimistic until the transaction is completed.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a nail-biting next few days. And I think the reality of this is, you know, everybody's pushing for lasting peace. You got President Obama weighing in saying, you know, this is great. A lot of people weighing in on this. So I think there's a lot of reason to believe that this will transpire. From the clip I played earlier of President Trump at the cabinet meeting, his statement was this is already done and that they're doing a ceremonial signing on Monday and that the hostages or whatever they're doing, and the hostages are being released. And he seemed to have a very good understanding of where the hostages are going. So there's a lot that's going on with the hostages that we don't know about. And I don't think President Trump is the type to jump the gun. I think he's speaking on the authority that he has, that it's a good deal. But I agree with you. I don't disagree with anything you said. When you're dealing with people who are unscrupulous, right? And I know this from like my own personal experiences. I used to be a police chaplain in the city of Newark, New Jersey. And every now and again in the summer, it would become very bloody, gang wars, all sorts of stuff. So the cops or rappers or whomever would go and broker a ceasefire, and they would last until they didn't last anymore. And everybody was well-intentioned until something popped off. And that's just how that is. Like you said, it's the nature of what it is. It's the nature of gangs in the hood to behave the way they do. That's something we can't change, and you just have to take it, I guess, with a grain of salt and be ready. You know, hope for the best, expect the worst. Doug in Clifton, Virginia, thank you for your call. Shout out to WMAL. Amigos, we continue the conversation in many parts of the country, but if you've got to go, you've got to get to work, check in, go to sleep, whatever it is. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you. Everybody else, I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere. Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We're back for another hour. We're live and national, by the way, so if you want to call, feel free. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And the American military is positioned now to help the initial Gaza peace deal. This is being reported by the New York Post. Check this out. The U.S. Military Central Command, known as CENTCOM, is going to oversee the initial stages of the International Stabilization Force, the ISF, which is going to be deployed into the Gaza Strip, with 3 or 4 other nations expected to contribute troops as well. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper will initially have 200 people on the ground, though no American forces will go into Gaza. That's according to U.S. officials that were on a phone call with the White House that was, walking everybody through the plan here. The American military role was described as coordinating troops provided by Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, and managing any type of, conflict with Israelis between those groups. So that's the initial report here for the New York Post. And let me see here. Admiral Cooper's role will be to observe and oversee to make sure there's no violations or incursions. Everybody's worried about the other side, so a lot of this job is going to be oversight. And that's it. And then there's a little map of what the new Gaza is going to look like. It's a little bit bigger than old Gaza, honestly. And that's because it includes a buffer zone where there will be walls and smart fences put in place to prevent Hamas from tunneling under the border or flying over it. So I guess this is part of the deal. They get the land, but it looks like it's going to be in a cage, that they can't go under or over. I don't know how they're going to pull that off, but we'll see how that goes. Again, I think ultimately everybody's tired of fighting, and if this is a big win for the people in the Gaza Strip, they get to keep what they've got, and I think they're happy about that. So that's that. Shutdown continues. We still have a shutdown. I know it doesn't come as a surprise to many people, but it is what's going on. Something I've been trying to talk to you guys about for the last couple of days. I usually get the big news out of the way, and then I go to the sillier stuff. But this one, I've had it on my desk for 2 days and maybe even 3 days. And let me tell you, listen to this. Florida firefighter accused of throwing 75 red-stained tampons onto her ex-boyfriend's yard. So you got a female firefighter, breaks up with a guy, and then she, I guess this is a prank? I don't know. But she's in hot water now because they're saying she threw 75 red-stained tampons. I don't know what that means. I'm hoping that they're not actually used, that this was more like an ugly prank, Kool-Aid type of thing. Gabrielle Franz, 28 years old, and she's a smoke jumper. Wow. Those are those heavy-duty firefighters that fly up in the air for the wildfires and whatnot. She's with the Orange County Fire and Rescue, and she was allegedly caught on surveillance video driving up to her ex-boyfriend's house around 10 o'clock at night just about a week ago, dumping what looks like a bunch of tampons that had red stains on them on her ex-boyfriend's house that he's now sharing with a new romantic partner. This was initially reported by Law and Crime, the Law and Crime Network. And I just thought, man, this is nuts, right? I got to talk about this because this is one of those things I love to bring to you guys in Radio Land and say, what's the craziest thing that an ex has done to you? And I don't mean, simple crazy. I mean real crazy. And listen, I'll take what you got. But, I don't know that I have a story about a crazy ex. Although, a bunch of years ago, Well, you know what? When you guys call with your stories, I'll share mine. How about that? We'll leave that on the hook, and we'll do calls on that in a little bit. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let me see. What else did I want to cover here? There's a few things I want to get into. There is a competing halftime show that is going to be running during the halftime show to compete with NFL's performance, and it's hosted by Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA is going to be offering a separate Super Bowl halftime show this coming February in 2026. It's called the All-American Halftime Show. It will be an alternate to the regular halftime show that will be performed by three-time Grammy Award winner Bad Bunny. And that's going to be in California. The Turning Point event, I don't know where that's going to be, but it doesn't matter because they'll stream it and they can create competition. Now, this is what I was talking about, right? Now, yes, I am a Bad Bunny fan. And you know, I've got my fingers crossed, and if all goes well, I'll be at the Super Bowl. But anybody who doesn't want to watch that, this is how you handle it, right? This is the conservative response. Hey, we don't like your position on ICE. I don't like what the message that you're sending by maybe not touring in the interior of the contiguous United States. You know what? We're going to go somewhere else with our halftime business. Listen, this is what America was built on. This is the free market. This competition. This is how you do it. Not belly aching and saying this and making stuff up or reliving the past. To me, it seems like the way the left would have handled it. This is how conservatives handle it. Kudos to Turning Point USA. Good for you. I love what I'm seeing. And the quote here is, "It's true. Turning Point USA is thrilled to announce the All-American Halftime Show." The organization wrote in an announcement on X. I heard about this a couple of days ago, but I hadn't seen it reported anywhere. And that's great. This is excellent. So I'm happy to see it. And you saw the turnout that they had for the Charlie Kirk Memorial. I could only imagine the lineup. Imagine that, right? A lineup like Kid Rock, Ted Nugent, Bryson Gray, the rapper, right? I mean, so many great people that are pro-America out there that are, you know, just really great people. And putting them all under one roof to compete with the Super Bowl, it's never been done. But you know who did something like this? And I loved it when he did it. President Trump. I don't know if you remember, President Trump said, yeah, I'll do this many debates. No, I'm not doing that debate. Forget it. And instead of going to the debate, he decided to sit down and do a one-on-one, and it streamed big time, right? He did a one-on-one interview that streamed to like 350 million people on the first day or in the first couple of hours. And it blew out the ratings that any debate he would have done anywhere else would have gotten. So he got more eyeballs, more press coverage, more everything. Now, is it a big task to take on the NFL on Super Bowl Sunday? Heck yeah. But you know what? I'll be streaming that show too, even though I like Bad Bunny. Even if I'm at the Super Bowl, I'll stream it just to add to their streaming numbers. Because why? Because I respect what they're doing. I think that's fantastic. And this is the type of thing that I would love to see more of. So kudos to Turning Point USA. I love that. I think that's the right way to handle that, rather than belly aching and beating up on Bad Bunny. You don't like him, you don't like him. You know what? I didn't like the last, 11 or 12 people that did the Super Bowl. I never watched that stuff. You know, just if I do, I see clips of it because I talk about it on the radio. And there was so much outrage, honestly, that I thought was a little over the top. Initially, because you know who performed at the Super Bowl 5 years ago and did a bunch of songs in Spanish? Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny did the halftime show 5 years ago with Jennifer Lopez, a.k.a. J-Lo, and Shakira. Shakira and J-Lo were the headliners, and he was their special guest. And all three of them were up there singing in Spanish. At the time, he had a song with Cardi B, and I liked it. It was a good show. That happens to be the type of music I like. But listen, I get it. It's not everybody's taste. That's how Super Bowls are. You're not always going to win. But my point is, nobody complained then, right? It was not, oh my gosh, he doesn't sing in English. He doesn't. Nobody said that. So why so big now? Why is it such? I think it's a lot of ill-placed ire, misplaced ire, if I will. But anyway, I think we have a solution. And thanks to Turning Point USA, Godspeed to all of those patriots. Good for you. And what else? There's another thing I want to get to here. Bear with me. Stand by, America. Oh, boy, my computer refreshed. All right, well, now I'm screwed. It'll take me 10 minutes to find it. So I'm going to hit pause right here. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations.
Thank you,
somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This is one source from the Associated Press, but the Associated Press says that they have a source who is saying that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted on a fraud charge. That is the latest case, the Associated Press reports, of charges being brought against a Trump foe. Now, Letitia James was accused by Bill Pulte in the Trump administration of alleged mortgage fraud. We'll have to wait and see what the details are of this apparent indictment of James before we know exactly what the case is that they're bringing. But the allegation had been that she was guilty of mortgage fraud for mislabeling or allegedly mislabeling a property as a primary residence. That's similar to allegations that Pulte has brought against a number of other people as well who are political rivals or otherwise in the way of the Trump administration. So we'll wait to see what this particular indictment does. But given that we saw an indictment of James Comey, the former FBI director, now apparently Letitia James, it does appear that there is a streak of indictments here against Trump rivals. And the question is going to be how these will be viewed in court, right, once they get in front of juries, whether juries see this as political prosecution or whether juries look at the merits of the case here and say, you know what, that person's guilty. Back over to you guys.
All right, that is a cut from CNBC. And no, that's not 22. What number was that, Mr. Good? 24, excuse me. That was Ernan Javers doing the closing bell on CNBC. Thank you. And again, I don't necessarily agree with the way he characterized that this is against Trump foes, because, you know, when they went after Trump, they didn't say it was Biden's foes or Obama's foes. They just said no one is above the law. No one, right? It was like this crazy zombie mantra. But now, all of a sudden, Trump is the bad guy, even though she's the one doing the mortgage fraud. Anyway, allegedly, right? I want to bring in our guest because Doug Burns served as the chief of the criminal division at the Department of Justice. He's been a defense attorney, spent nearly 4 decades as a lawyer, and he's one of the best legal analysts in this business. Doug Burns, welcome back.
Thanks, Rich. Good to be with you.
Thank you. So what's your initial take here on this Letitia James thing? Because, again, I don't know much, right? You know, You say politics and law don't mix. I always agree with you. But I'll say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, and I really don't know. I think people lie on mortgage applications all the time, and I think she's no different than a lot of people, but she got caught. And the question is, how much trouble is she going to get into? And probably a little more because, A, she's an officer of the court. She was the Attorney General of New York, and she also went after somebody else for doing something that she actually did, Doug Burns.
Well, right out of the gate, you make some great points. I mean, she's a lawyer. She's the chief law enforcement officer of New York State. So to the extent, and we'll double back to it later in the discussion in a minute, but to the extent that people might say, oh, it's kind of just a technical thing. Well, wait a minute. You're an officer of the courts. You're a lawyer. You're the attorney general of the state, et cetera, et cetera. But the ironies run much, much, much deeper, okay? She brought a case against Donald Trump. No one lost a dime. The banks were satisfied with the transactions, said they would do business with him again. When it was pointed out that nobody lost money, she said that's not required under this statute, which is probably technically true, but it was just an abomination of a case. But it got 10 times worse. She was in video saying, every single day I'm going to go to work to get this guy. That's a disgrace, obviously. She ran in a political campaign on getting the guy. That's also disgraceful conduct. But again, I've thought about this long and hard because there's a lot to unpack in terms of some logic. So let me just give the logic a try. If you assume, for the sake of argument, Rich, that the cases against Trump were illegitimate, which they essentially were, and then you assume that this case is illegitimate, which it may or may not be. It's not really technically illegitimate. I'll explain that in a minute. But the point is, if it's in both directions, then two wrongs don't make a right. However, if both cases in both directions are legit, then so be it. You go to court, see where the chips fall. But what's just remarkable, breathtakingly remarkable, is I click on liberal media, and it's important for me to say to all of your listeners, I watch both sides, and I wish many of the so-called liberals that I sit across dinner tables from in New York City would do the same. It might help them make a more intelligent assessment of where the truth really lies. But put that editorial to the side for a moment. The fact of the matter is that, here was a situation where she was stressing that, as you said in the opening, and you covered a lot of the key points. No one's above the law. Even the most technical violation must be fully prosecuted. And as my late father would say, and he was a brilliant man, I mean, if you're going to change the rules, you better be prepared to live by those rules. And a number of cliches immediately pop into my head. A, what goes around comes around. B, you're simply being hoisted on your own petard. And then C, the most important one of all, people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. So you have to be kidding me for her to stand there and say, this is nothing more than weaponized justice against me. You're the one who changed the rules all day long. You said that the most hyper technical minor violation must be prosecuted. Well, guess what? You're now going to live by those rules. Now, on the case, real quick, very simple case, not complicated, okay? And you hit on it. She bought a property in Virginia, and the paperwork indicates that she was going to reside there. Could have been even a secondary residence. That doesn't matter. She then rented the property out. Under the terms of the mortgage, you're not allowed to do that. You only qualify for the lower rate if you're going to live there. That's not really all that complicated. So it's a technical violation of law. There are some questions in fairness. The indictment's a little bit vague. I'm looking at it right now. As to, who exactly signed this paperwork. They do claim that in the mortgage documents and the insurance documents, it indicates that she was going to reside there in some way, shape, or form. Yet in IRS filings, it indicates that it was a rental property, which the accountant had to do. They actually rented it and took in income, and he had to show it on the taxes. Right. So that's the case in a nutshell. It's not, an overwhelmingly serious case, but I put it into the context of what I just told you, which is you stood there lecturing us that somebody who was about to become president of the United States for the second time engaged in loan transactions. All the money was paid back. The banks were perfectly satisfied with the transactions, would do business with them again, and you had a corrupt judge who imposed a $500 million fine in that situation, which, by the way, and you and I had discussed the pendency of the appeal on an earlier show. It got overturned, exactly.
Doug Burns, stand by right there because there's more. I want you to take your time with this because I want everybody in America to understand the merits of this case, as well as I want to get some thoughts on the James Comey indictment because this is also uncharted territory. So we're going to come right back with Doug Burns, former chief of the criminal division for the Department of Justice, defense attorney, all-around great guy, and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
That is James Comey. I'm going to now officially give him the name of disgraced James Comey, former FBI director, now indicted. And he says he's not guilty, and you heard everything else he had to say. And it's what I expected him to say, honestly. I think most, he's a lawyer, and a lot of these lawyers, Letitia James, also a lawyer, and most lawyers, and I got one on the line, Doug Burns. Matter of fact, I won't make the point. I'm going to let Doug make the point. Doug Burns, I get indicted. The media has cameras all in my face. What do you advise me to do?
Say nothing.
Every lawyer in the world would say that. But yet these guys go out there and they start singing songs, and it's a soliloquy to the media. And that's how it's almost like, in my gut, I say, oh, they're totally guilty.
Well, it's interesting because, let's do a quick comparison between Letitia James. Her conduct, as I said, I'm not going to waste time, was outrageous, but the conduct that they're accusing her of is technical and not that serious. James Comey, if what she did is a 2 out of 100, what he did is a 99 out of 100. When you look at the abuse of the Federal Bureau of Investigation for political purposes, the weaponization of this very, very, very elite institution that has tremendous credibility and prestige for, again, raw political purpose. A lot of what he did wrong is not subject to prosecution because the statutes of limitation have run out, okay? But very important point for your audience, we have what's called Rule 404B, probably the most famous rule of federal evidence rules. 404B is prior bad acts. Simple English, you can put into evidence the FISA abuse and the other stuff, even though he wasn't charged with it. If the judge allows it, you have to argue it to the judge. That'll be fought tooth and nail, okay? But the reality of the Comey thing is there's much less, to worry about in terms of, it's going against political foes. And by the way, I want to double back to your excellent point about how, you listen to an NBC, for example, and everything's characterizations. Here's a case against a political foe. Well, excuse me, did you ever once say that when it was in reverse? No. I watched MSNBC legal pundits. These are lawyers, look right into the camera and pompously say about the Trump cases, a grand jury returned an indictment. You have to understand how serious that is. That's independent from the prosecutor. That's completely disingenuous nonsense. But 10 times more importantly, when it's in reverse, now all of a sudden, Rich, it's, you can indict a ham sandwich.
Right.
I mean, you got to be kidding me with these double standards. So the point is, all we do, and I'll get corny for a minute, I'm going to be on media next couple of days, obviously, talking about all this stuff, Letitia James and Comey. And, on our side of the fence, we don't do what they do. So you're never going to see me, Doug Burns, on a television segment saying, this is a slam dunk and Comey's obviously guilty. You're just never going to hear that. What you're going to hear is he's entitled to his day in court. We'll see how the chips fall. We'll look at the evidence. But at the same time, it does appear that they have a pretty strong case that he lied to Congress about what he was doing with the Russiagate scandal, et cetera, et cetera. Tish James, I'm going to say, look, doesn't appear to be the case of the century, but at the same time, if she filled out mortgage and insurance paperwork saying she was going to live there and then went ahead and rented it out in violation of the terms of the mortgage to get a better rate, well, two things. A, it's a violation of law, and B, that was exactly what you were on your whole big high horse about with respect to Donald John Trump.
Right. And, Doug Burns, I think the difference here, because I get what you're saying, and you say, she's a 2 out of 100 and he'd be a 99 out of 100. I think they did the same thing, weaponizing government against Trump. The difference is he's been caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and she's yet to be caught for that. So she's been caught on something else.
Yeah, just for clarification purposes, my 2 and 99 is on what they're being accused of.
Right.
She's a 99 in her misconduct and weaponization against Trump, as is Comey a 99. They're tied on that side of the ledger. I'm just saying on this particular mortgage fraud case. And by the way, let me go back to my double standard analogy. You could have pundit after pundit on MSNBC analyzing this Tish James case, if it was in reverse, for example, against the Republican, and they'd be like, this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Right, the walls are closing in.
Even though it appears to be a light charge, Trust me when I tell you, you'll see much more serious charges. I couldn't believe the level of disingenuousness that I heard out of lawyers' mouths, particularly throughout like the Russiagate thing, where, I mean, obviously Adam Schiff he's a graduate of Harvard Law School, excuse me, and he goes, I have seen overwhelming evidence of the collusion, and 10 times more disgracefully, Rich, but I'm not allowed to share it because of its sensitive nature. What a disgrace. Come on.
Yeah, no, that was, and he continues to disgrace America as a senator now. Unbelievable.
Sure does. And when the Mueller report came out, no collusion. Here's the other double standard. Bob Mueller was the greatest thing since the invention of the wheel, the knight in shining armor, who's going to bring down Trump for his collusion. He's wonderful, amazing, and phenomenal. Then the report comes out, no collusion. Oh, my God, he's horrible. I mean,
That's how the deep state works.
Seriously? Come on. That's crazy.
Oh, my gosh. Doug Burns, you know, I look at this and I say, people are, you know, and a lot of people want to see justice done in America because of, you know, how much President Trump went through. And look, you and I have had this conversation multiple times.
Yep.
There isn't another case that I know of, and if you do, please bring us up to speed on it.
Sure.
Where we've seen any one person, you know, a president being so persecuted, prosecuted, and just attacked from every angle as we have with President Trump. Yet it's somehow they always make him out to be the bad guy. Now he's an authoritarian, he's a fascist, he's weaponizing everything against everyone. It's like the guy can't get a break.
Well, I'll leave you with a good one. A president, John Gotti, neither John Gotti nor Al Capone were indicted 4 times at the same time, okay? No. And so the point is,
Trump has
think
a
about
record.
that. Think about that. So now Donald Trump's indicted 4 times at the same time. That was laughable. And by the way, one last really fast observation.
Yeah.
Comey and Letitia James, they're going to just surrender to the courthouses. Somebody like Peter Navarro, that guy was, and Roger Stone, they were arrested and put in leg shackles. I mean,
The
what
raid
nonsense.
on Stone's house.
What nonsense. You got to be kidding me. The raid of Mar-a-Lago is absurd. I asked a former high-ranking DOJ official who worked right under the deputy AG back, 20 years ago. I said, let me ask you a question. If a couple of agents came in and said they wanted the deputy AG to authorize a search of Kenny Bunkport, George H.W. Bush's house, what would you have said? Answer, get the F out of my office.
Right.
Seriously. No, because that was absurd. That was absolutely breathtakingly absurd that they actually executed a search warrant, which,
With
by
a
the
SWAT
way,
team.
all you need to do is a subpoena. You don't need a search warrant. So anyway, what went on was disgraceful, and now that it's in reverse a little bit, in fairness, we're going to be really fair. You can entertain notions that 2 wrongs don't make a right, but you can also entertain notions that they changed the rules and have to live by them, exactly like I've been arguing to you tonight.
Yep.
And you can look at it any way you want, honestly.
You know, Doug Burns, I'm with you. My gut tells me 2 wrongs don't make a right, but the rest of my body tells me they changed the game. They moved the goalpost. We've got to play ball.
That's the point. Moving the goalpost is a better way to put it. I like that. Yeah. Yep.
Excellent. Now, Doug Burns, what's your thought on this Letitia James? Both of these characters have been indicted on 1 count, so it's 1 count or nothing. And this will be a jury trial, so it's 1 juror that can mess things up. What do you think the likelihood of actually seeing justice here, of them, going to jail or even getting 5 years of probation?
Yeah. But, Rich, now you get into some practical factors that are very, very important and inescapable to discuss. The Eastern District of Virginia is a liberal district, okay? So the jury pool is not all that great for the government. That creates a little bit of an uphill battle. If the case hypothetically were in a very conservative district, it would be a much different discussion. So we'll see how that plays out. I was in a case in the Eastern District of Virginia, not of any great significance to tonight's discussion, but they moved the cases quickly. One of my friends, a longtime DOJ lawyer.
Is that the one they call the rocket docket?
Exactly. He said, Doug, nobody's talking about the rocket docket. And my case, which was a white-collar securities fraud case, moved along very, very quick. No adjournments of the sentencing. Everything really on a quick pace. Judge was great, though, in the case, and, so were the prosecutors. It was fine. But, again, it's a liberal district, so I think that might be a little bit of an uphill battle. We'll see. But the Comey case, again, I'm telling you right now, this question of other bad conduct and other bad acts is going to be very important to that case. And as for Letitia James, Hard to say. It's if they can prove the technical violation, then she's in technical violation. I mean, if she certified that she was going to live there and then she rented it out, I mean, then she is technically guilty.
With Comey, we can use the other bad acts, but we can't with James? Or is that on the table for her as well?
No, I don't think. I'm not so sure there are a lot of other bad acts. In other words, in terms of criminal acts, you can put aside all the ethical stuff, which is the terrible ethical misbehavior. Running for Attorney General, that's a law position. That's an important distinction, as opposed to even just some other political position. Running for the law position, I'm going to go to work every single day to go after a particular individual, a putative defendant. That's insane. But I don't know that there's other criminal conduct that they can point to. But again, back to our little MSNBC analogy, guys had no hesitation whatsoever. I won't name them because it's not even worth it. But they would say, I'm sure there will be all kinds of other criminal conduct by the time we get to trial. There's no question about that. These people were so reckless. It's just amazing for me to listen to stuff like that. So again, I don't do that in reverse. Right now she's charged with this mortgage fraud, claiming she was going to live in Virginia. There's another ancillary point people have made. It's not a bad point, and that is, well, wait a minute. If you're the chief law enforcement officer of New York State, you don't want to be living in Virginia. Hello, right? So that's another kind of related concept. But if you're asking me crystal ball, which is entirely fair, I think the Comey case may prove difficult. We didn't get into the real substance of it, but Andy McCabe, is supposedly the one who was supposed to say that Comey directed him or authorized him to make leaks. Not sure that McCabe's going to hold up. I'm not sure they vetted him properly. Andy McCarthy wrote an article about it in the National Review. People can look at that. But the point is, on Letitia James, it's a pretty straightforward case. And if jurors are conscientious, they'll look at it. And, but again, it's not clear from the indictment. I want to be fair also. Again, they don't do that in reverse. It's not 100% clear from the indictment exactly who signed the paperwork. There's been talk that it was her niece who was going to live there, and in fact, she was the one who signed the paperwork. So again, we got to be open-minded and see how it all plays out in court.
Doug Burns, we're going to keep you on retainer as this thing plays out. We're going to keep getting your analysis.
I'll give you the address for the check.
You bet. All right, Doug Burns, God bless you. Thank you, sir.
God bless. Take care.
Bye-bye. And amigos, we're coming right back. Your thoughts, calls, and reactions. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, and we are keeping you company this evening, 833-4VALDEZ. I'm going to go to Chicago, Illinois, WLS, the blowtorch in the Midwest there. Let's go to Julie. Go ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, Rich. Thank you. So, Letitia James, I'm a real estate broker in Chicago, and when the news first broke that she was bringing those fraud charges against Trump, and the basis of the case was that he overvaluated his properties. Remember that?
Yeah,
they
of
were
course.
saying that
He overvaluated Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. Okay. But the first thing that jumped out of it about me about all of this is I thought to myself, Trump has been in business since he was very young. I mean, decades and decades of business dealings, developments, all types of different businesses. And I thought to myself, she must have had an army of attorneys scouring through his business dealings, trying to find something. And what does she come up with? She comes up with the overvaluation of assets. And I thought to myself, where did you pull that from? Like, are you kidding me? out of everything that you scoured through, this is what you come up with. And then the example is given of Mar-a-Lago valuated at, I think, something ridiculous like $18 million, right? Wasn't it $18 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just let me share a quick story with you, because I went to Mar-a-Lago a couple of times and a few years ago. And I remember passing, there was a project, like they knocked down a house and it was just empty. And I remember asking the guy who was driving me, and he was like, "Oh, I've heard that this lot here," and the number it was going for was something crazy, like $50 million. And I laughed, because I was like, she's saying this place is worth $18 million, and meanwhile, a vacant lot was going for like $40 or $50 million, and I just thought that was crazy.
Well, it is crazy, but then I thought to myself regarding this court case, I'm like, this can be a slam dunk for Trump, because, oh my God, for her to come out and base this case on an overvaluation, I would think she would have had to have looked at, either hired her own appraiser to appraise the land or the property at the time that the mortgage application was being made, or the loan documents were submitted, right? Not current value, but whatever that time frame was. And then it's like, okay, who's the licensed appraiser that could possibly pull $18 million out of their butt saying that this is the value of the property? That person, number one, should lose their license. Yeah. And so, but then, like that clip you played of her earlier saying, a court upheld, the whatever, somebody listening to that doesn't have my knowledge in real estate will listen to that and say, oh, she's right. This went to court and it was upheld, and they buy this hook, line, and sinker. And when I get into disagreements with my Facebook friends about this, and I say to them, I'm like, look, she's basing this on an overvaluation. Let me tell you something. There is no way that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million. And I went back and I pulled some other property values. I didn't do a deep dive.
Right,
but,
and I'm guessing you found that it was worth a lot more. And you know what happens, Julie, is that ultimately, A, your friends are going to get mad at you, and B, even if you have the proof, most of them are like, you're just one of those radical red hat people. It's crazy, but you made a good point. When they put it that way, people really do believe everything that they're reading and hearing. And that's why I think when Trump said the media are the enemy of the people, I understood what he was saying. Julie, thanks for a great call. I appreciate it. Amigos, we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people. Mr. Good, what's on the clock there? All right, Tony, Montreal, Canada, WVMT. Go right ahead, sir. You got 40 seconds.
So, there's a coordinated effort between all of these mayors, governors, and prosecutors on the left to obstruct and to do as much damage to Trump. But they all know they cannot win. They've been losing. You go from Omar, Helmut Fatah, all the way to Pritzker, who wants to be president. You never hear from any other governors, because everybody else is on Trump's side. Trump will win, the right will win, and the left will always lose.
Tony, thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate it. And I think you're right. I think they're really realizing they've lost the people. People are seeing right through the corruption, and they're like, I don't want any part of it. Amigos, we come back. More thoughts, calls, and reactions. And me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We're live and national, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And our phone number, if you want to join us, we're live and national this evening, hoping to speak with you. And the number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a few things, right? Because of course, the big deal today, President announcing that the deal in Hamas will go through, and everybody's looking forward to that. I think most people are skeptical, thinking that the Hamas terrorists are going to, pull out one last stop before they, move forward with a peace deal. Or maybe it was the whole thing was, let's have a ceasefire so we can regroup like they typically do. But it seems like we're at a place, at least from all the folks I've spoken with and from what I can see, and even President Obama weighing in and saying the fact that they're pursuing long-lasting peace is encouraging. So I have not heard President Obama praise anything or, even respond to anything that the Trump administration's done, at least in a positive way. And he did on this. So, excuse me, I think this is promising, and I'm hopeful that the killing will end. And that, let the peace begin. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I also want to get into, just the usual stuff in the culture wars. While we're busy about worrying about what's going on with Letitia James and with James Comey and with everything else, the left is still rearing its head doing what the left does, right? And I hate to sound overly political, but politics affects our lives in more ways than most people realize. Not most people listening to the show. Most people who don't listen to this show, or any shows for that matter. I think they just think that life is life. I remember years ago, people would tell me, "Oh, everything's political for you. You look at everything politically." Today, nobody says that to me. Why? Because years ago, there was a book by Dr. James Dobson. It was Marriage Under Fire, and in it he argued that. Again, now the year for that book, I don't know. I want to say early 2000s, maybe 2000, 2001. Maybe if I might be able to look it up while I'm talking to you. But what's the point? Well, the point is, in the book that Dobson wrote, Marriage Under Fire, he mentions a couple of things, right? And one of the things he mentioned was how 2004. So there you go. He says men are going to marry whatever they want. They will marry their horse. They will marry their dog. He goes on, and people at the time, James Dobson's off his rocker. Marriage is between a man and a woman. And back then, famous politicians, right, like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, when he was, before he was big time, and others, they were on deck. Bill Clinton, they were all on deck saying, we support the Defense of Marriage Act. Marriage is between one man and one woman. It's called DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. And those same politicians, look at them today. Barack Obama went from being a state senator in Illinois to becoming the United States Senator for Illinois to becoming the President of the United States in 2012. In 2008, and then again in 2012. And he is the only president to date that I've seen to light up the colors of the rainbow, which he did it in honor of what they call Pride, the LGBTQ flag, which is really the rainbow flag, which I think Christians had the original copyright on that, right? From the covenant that God makes in the Bible about peace after the flood. But anyway, getting beside myself here. The bottom line with this is that was Obama that did that. You know, the Supreme Court case that overturned or that made marriage legal between anybody happened in Obama's term. And these were things he celebrated. So when you have such a shift in politics and in policy and really worldview and outlook, it's like, man, that's interesting. I didn't see that coming. And the things that James Dobson talked about back then about marriage being under fire, that stuff's all happening now. All of it. Like there's not a thing that isn't happening. Everything he mentioned there is happening. And it makes you think, you know, now you really do have some parents, that are saying, excuse me, why are you giving books that talk about oral sex to fourth graders and third graders? And why do you have books with even like cartoon-like drawings about this type of thing? And these weren't even issues other than the radical Christians. They were talking about it 20 years ago. So what's the point? The point is, while we're worried about James Comey and the rest of the stuff that's going on in the world, the radical left is still doing what they do. They're still corrupting public education left and right. You know, I've always been a big advocate of education. I enjoyed, not so much anymore, honestly, to tell you the truth, but I used to enjoy reading a lot. And like, you know, longer books. Now I'm good with a long article. I'm like, all right, I'm good. The ADHD gets better and better. But my point is, they're out there, and in many ways, they're winning in the culture war. And it's up to us, right? We the people, to make a difference, to push back on that culture so that our children don't grow up in a place that is totally warped, right? You can still have all the bad things in the world. You can still have everything I grew up with, right? Songs about sex and drugs and degrading women and this, that. All of that existed when I was a kid. But today, it's back then I knew it was kind of taboo. It was like, no, well, you know, I wouldn't play this in front of my neighbors. I wouldn't play this in front of the pastor. I wouldn't play this song in front of my parents. Now it's kind of like people are blasting it and parents are singing along. So, you know, I've always told my children, look, there are things that we can consider adult entertainment. And I don't mean pornography per se. Certain things that I think are not for kids. You know, you raise your kids in a little bit of a safe environment, right? A little bit of a bubble, right? That's not for the kids. We don't want to curse around the kids. We don't want to do whatever around the kids. That's good. I think all those things are good. Kids, I think we should all protect the innocence of a child as long as we can, because eventually they're going to learn things. Somebody once told me a very, very vulgar statement. I won't repeat it on the air, but it was that an older woman had told her, it was a woman, and she said, you know, I think it was a grandmother, and told her something like, did your mother ever teach you how to do blank blank? And she was like, excuse me, Grandma? And the point was, she was like, yeah, that's right, she didn't, neither did I. There's a whole bunch of things that you learn to do all on your own, and we don't have to start teaching our kids those things now. And that stuck with me, and I realized, while it was vulgar, it was 100% true. Your kids are going to learn stuff. And I'd rather my kids learn certain things when they're 18, 19, and 20 than 9, 10, and 11. Just my take. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the classrooms, what are kids learning these days, all sorts of things like that. I also want to get into, of course, you know, your calls. We have calls from across the country we're going to get to, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to talk about some of the legal stuff and the security of our country, because we've got a number of issues that are, you know, in front of us right now. And, you know, the Israel-Hamas peace deal is one of them, but we also have a lot of domestic issues that we're looking at. You got the stuff that's happening in Chicago, the stuff that's happening in Portland. And again, our rights as individuals, our rights as parents to protect our kids. You've got Oregon, Washington, New Jersey, California. These places are like ground zero for the crazy. So keep it locked right here. I want to bring in our guest, Dr. Joseph Olidort, from the America First Policy Institute. And we're going to do that straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, now it's my turn. All right, amigos, I'm back. And I want to get into a number of things that are happening with respect to the latest with the war ending. Listen to this.
Redone. You have tremendous wealth in that part of the world by certain countries, and just a small part of that, what they make will do wonders for Gaza. And I think you're going to see some tremendous countries stepping up and putting up a lot of money and taking care of things. But there's tremendous spirit like I haven't seen. And even the news, I won't call it fake news for this purpose, because they really were very fair today, I must tell you, in all cases. But they covered it very well. They covered it very fairly. Everybody loves it. Everybody. People that were never giving us a fair shake, frankly, they can't even believe it. They're so they're amazed by it. A lot of people are.
Again, President Trump talking about the rebuilding of Gaza and how wealthy Arab countries are going to be contributing to that. And I wanted to get a little bit of a take on this from Jacob Olidort. He is Dr. Jacob Olidort. He's the director of the Center for American Security at the America First Policy Institute. Sir, welcome back.
Great to be with you, Rich. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. And you heard President Trump talk about this this peace deal that's finally come together, and it's been a long time coming, and it seems like there's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, but yet it's been pulled off. I've heard even previous critics of the president say that he's been able to pull off something that no one else has been able to pull off, bringing all these parties to the table at the same time and getting them to all kind of pull the trigger in a positive way, right, on peace. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
No, absolutely. I think it's probably the most historic event. It's the biggest peace achievement of both of his terms in office so far. It can't be overstated. And as you said, it's extraordinary to see all the leftist talking heads. You have everyone from John Meacham, Martha Raddatz, and others on all the different MSNBCs and stuff, just basically saying nobody else could have pulled this off. This is incredible, and it's true. And I think there's a lot to it. You know, I think that this, as the president himself said, it's not just about Gaza, but it's really about transforming the region here. And that's, I think, what's been missing. Obviously, it could not have happened with any other president. But it was set in motion by a number of, obviously, events that happened in the region. And then I think what you really saw last week was 8 different countries immediately come out in support of the plan. You saw Qatar taking it very seriously, and Turkey too, all again because of the president's personal involvement and insistence on this happening. And so, I think we're still in wait-and-see mode a little bit. It is Hamas, and there's still a lot of time until Sunday, which is when they're set to release the living hostages. But nonetheless, the fact that this happened, this was agreed to, and the fact that with this, they will, if everything goes to plan, they release all of the hostages. In my view, by next week, we can begin talking about the war having ended already. So it is that big of a deal in my mind.
Outstanding. I'm happy that we're really at this point in history.
Yeah.
Now, Jacob Olidort, that being said, when we look at the security situation that the United States is in domestically, right? That's, a matter of security in many ways internationally.
So
but let's talk about, just really initially a cursory view of your thoughts on what's going on in the crime that we see coming out of New York City that's kind of unaddressed in many ways. But the drop in crime that we see in Washington, D.C., the warm welcome that we're seeing for federal law enforcement in some parts of the country, and the not so warm welcome that they're getting, like in Oregon.
Oh yeah, well no, you and I both have seen kind of what's happened to New York City and other great cities of this country right after the pandemic, and under the Biden administration's watch, we're really kind of letting it all go, and just outright crime, murder rates and everything going up in big cities, making them unlivable really for residents. And that's obviously something that in my mind, I think obviously struck the president very, personally, obviously as as a native to New York and other big cities. And so I think that is really, in some ways, that is the classic model of shattered windows that we saw. America's mayor shepherd that revival of New York, by really bringing in law enforcement, showing that, look, the law is there to protect residents, people who live there. Part of this also, too, was the open borders policy of the Biden administration, which, no prior administration, Democrat or Republican, had ever, witnessed or watched over. And, that not just, no border enforcement at the southern border, but actually providing, incentives, providing services to illegal migrants in the cities, mixed in with that high crime, created this really unlivable, untenable situation. And so, I think that's the point to which we've gotten as a country. And then talk about the partisanship and, the ways in which justice had been miscarried and used for political purposes by the last administration. This is where we are. But I think, you're right, that there are basic fundamental freedoms, fundamental security that, we certainly as American citizens should enjoy, should have living in freedom. And I think that is ultimately what's at stake, is being able to live in our great cities, build families there, just thrive in our communities there. And I think that's ultimately the end state where certainly the president and his administration is trying to bring us all to.
Yeah,
with a partnership with our great states. Yeah.
And another area I think that while the physical security part is what we just talked about, there are other threats, right? Threats to the culture, threats to the fabric of society with public schools and I'm going to say nefarious individuals in certain districts, kind of usurping parental authority, trying to get at children, kind of to recruit them for whatever their latest cause is, whether it's the LGBTQ movement or radicalizing them towards some other type of ideology. And this has always been present in my lifetime in higher education, in academia. It's not something that I feel like we've always seen at the public school level, at least not as blatant as it is these days. So I know that AFPI, the America First Policy Institute, has done a lot of work in this particular area, and we're going to take a quick pause. But when we come back, Jacob Olidort, I'm hoping that you will bring us up to speed on what's going on in Seattle, Washington.
Absolutely.
Outstanding. So, amigos, we're going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back and hear about what's going on there, how parents' rights are under attack in Seattle, Washington, as well as reminding you that we're going to go to your calls right after that. So we've got the phone number for you, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we're talking about everything from Trump getting a Nobel Peace Prize to artificial intelligence to your thoughts on the Super Bowl pick and everything else. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I believe that Seattle Public Schools is trying to protect the freedom for all students to learn.
Seattle parent Debbie Carlson is supporting a Seattle school policy recently thrust in the spotlight, specifically being unable to opt a child out of LGBTQ inclusive curriculum, from reading books with LGBTQ characters and sharing pronouns, to teaching LGBTQ history and using terms like transgender or gender identity. It was in June that the Supreme Court reviewed a similar policy for a school district in Maryland. The ruling for Mahmoud versus Taylor states that a group of parents could opt their kids out of these lessons for religious reasons.
The Supreme Court addressed whether or not these parents had a First Amendment right to opt their children out of this part of the curriculum.
Shwali Patel is with the National Women's Law Center, which has been outspoken against the summer ruling, claiming it could have devastating impacts in the classroom.
I think it's so important when a school district is incorporating instruction that that values and celebrates diversity.
That leaves the question of where the Seattle district draws the line when it comes to parents' rights for opt-out rules. The Washington State Parental Rights Initiative is a parent's bill of rights, allowing them to review instructional materials, be notified, and opt out of certain activities. And SPS, in an emailed statement, adds that outside of sexual health education, state law does not provide for selective opt-outs from curriculum.
That is a report from KOMO News in Seattle, Washington. And again, a number of things going on in Seattle, but this one where parents are losing their ability to opt out is one that some parents are thrilled about, those on the left, and other parents they're rabid about it, and I would be too, because this isn't something I had to contend with when my kids were in school. I want to bring our guest back in, Joseph Olidort from the America First Policy Institute. Jacob, excuse me, I read the wrong screen. Jacob Olidort. And Jacob Olidort, tell us a little bit about what AFPI is doing in Seattle to address this.
Absolutely. No, it's a very interesting and important issue, obviously, going on. And look, obviously, everybody's personal beliefs are what they are. You know, that we protect freedom of speech. But the issue right here specifically, and cited in that Supreme Court decision, Mahmoud v. Taylor, is that it's parents' choice, and parents should have the right to opt their children out of curricula, out of being taught things that go against their religious creed, their religious beliefs. That is a basic right entitled to every parent. And what this specific school did was basically violate that principle. And our actions was to call attention to the school, to follow the law, and to really provide parents with that option to take their children out of those courses and curricula that teach this gender fluidity. And just to give you a flavor of it, there's a book, for example, a lesson plan, It Feels Good to Be Yourself. And there's a description of Alex, quote, Alex is both boy and girl. So it's not even presented as an option. It is a categorical, projecting onto, children, impressionable children, the fact that there is absolutely gender fluidity, can be both. This is, again, it's everyone's right to believe what they believe, but to impose this and to not provide an option for parents to allow their children to not be taught this, that is what is so sinister and violates the federal law, the Supreme Court decision at issue right here.
So what do you, I know you guys are you issuing a stern letter? Are you suing someone? I guess what's the next step or the series of steps you have to take to really come alongside parents here and support them?
Absolutely. Well, this is part of a long series of actions we've taken on a number of related issues, obviously parental rights and care for children, and really instituting accountability in education and making sure that it is, the parents have control in education. But look, I don't want to get ahead of exactly the actions. We sent this letter last month, so it's kind of the first, let's say, flare that was sent up to just send the message that this is a concern of ours, and that schools cannot place burdens on parents to guide their children's faith and moral formulation. That is the key tenet of this action. Where it goes from here, I don't want to get too far again ahead of the process, but it's something we're looking at. We'll wait to see how they respond. It's, I think, only been about a week since we took that action. So now the ball's in their court, and obviously we would like to see change happen on their end. But, we'll make a decision at that point, see how they respond.
Now, Jacob Olidort, do you have any indication or reaction from, I guess, the community at large based on these actions that you've taken? Has it been well received? Is it kind of split 50-50 between the critics and those that are supporting the work you're doing? Is it, I'm just curious to know if it's even welcomed. I don't know how far gone, that clip starts with a mother saying, I think it's great, we're celebrating diversity. And I'm thinking, you could celebrate all diversity you want. You just don't have to do it. You don't force me to celebrate your diversity. Right. And I feel like that's a crazy place to land in as a parent.
Absolutely. No, I mean, look, well, and as you played that clip, exactly right. I mean, look, there are many different views among different parents there, I'm sure, and there are obviously those who are very supportive of this, and that one clip that you played, a parent that's supportive of the school upholding their violation of this opt-out policy, but then, of course, others that are outraged by it. And so, obviously, we are, responding, obviously, to what the letter of the law dictates and what's in the best interest of providing parents with that right. So those parents that are supportive of this policy of teaching this, they have that option, too, of keeping their children in those classes. But, of course, those parents whose religious beliefs are being violated here, they need to have rights here, too. And that is what the Supreme Court decided.
Now, Doc, tell everybody how they can learn more about the work you're doing at AFPI and how they could keep up to speed with this as you move forward.
Absolutely. Well, our website is americafirstpolicy.com. I could be found on social media, JOLIDORT, but our website has all the latest in our publications, organized by different policy issue areas. Mine is foreign policy and national security, but we have education, we have litigation, a bunch of different topics that we cover. I've been with the organization since its founding in 2021. We're a C3, a 501c3, so we all came out of the first term of the Trump administration, but of course are separate and don't speak, obviously, for the president and his team, but are very proud to be supporting their policies and trying to help advance an America First policy to save our country.
Well, keep up the great work. Excellent think tank, even though technically in infancy, right? But putting out a lot of great work. So Godspeed to you, Dr. Olidort. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rich, for having me. Yep.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on and staying up late with us. And before we take a pause, I want to make sure we get to some of your calls. 833-482-5337. Let us go to Valparaiso, Indiana, WLS, and check in with Roy. Roy, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Rick. How you doing? First of all, first time I'm calling. I've been listening to your show lately, and I'm not originally from Indiana. I'm actually from South Jersey. Moved out here 6 years ago. Yeah, so my whole thing, I was listening to you, and you were talking about Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't like his music.
Yeah. Do you listen to that genre of music?
I actually do. I'm Portuguese, and I listen to a lot of reggaeton. Yeah. And me personally, yeah, Bad Bunny's funny. I saw him on Happy Gilmore too. Dude's hilarious.
Yeah.
But his music, I'm not too fond of his music. Now, if the NFL wants to go in that direction, I mean, there's plenty of better artists like Nicky Jam or Don Omar or Wisin Yandel.
Yeah, well, that means you're my age, right? Because those guys are my age.
Right, exactly.
Right,
So,
and just to make it for the rest of the audience understand, the Bad Bunny's more of a Spanish trap artist, which is like an offshoot of hip hop, and it falls into reggaeton, but it's not really reggaeton. So I get that. And if you're an old school 2000s Daddy Yankee, Nicky Jam, you're a fan of that. It's not really even comparable. I would say it's a whole different thing, and so I could see that. And just full disclosure, I also Bad Bunny came out. I heard it from my kids, and I thought, yeah, it's all right. I thought it was a fad. I honestly didn't think it was going to be something that lasted. His success, but as he put out more records, I found the humor in them, and I started laughing, and then they became different. And there's been several iterations, I would say, of Bad Bunny through each album, and he's definitely grown on me. I've become a fan, and I do think he's actually very talented. This last one, I mean, he's singing ballads, he's doing all sorts of things, so he's always got a surprise up his sleeve. But I get your point.
right. Now, me personally, I would much rather see Metallica as the halftime show.
Sure.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, listen, I got you. And where I land on this has always been the same place. Whether I like Bad Bunny or not, which I do, it really to me was about the NFL makes whatever choice they want. I've never complained about an NFL halftime show in the past when it was Beyonce, when it was whomever, and I'm not really going to start now, right? I don't think that it's pertinent for me to do that. Now, that's one point. The other point is Bad Bunny is but like by all accounts, one of the top artists in the globe. He's selling out everything he does. There are no halfway sold out shows. He's beat Taylor Swift. He's beat Michael Jackson as the most streaming artist on Spotify for several years in a row. And that's not me bragging for him. That's just me putting the facts out there. So, when the NFL makes a decision, they go, we're going to go with the guy who's selling more records than anybody. Then, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. Go with the guy who's doing that. They have this streaming deal with Univision. And I think a big part of this that I was brought to my attention, and I think makes a lot of sense, is the halftime show is sponsored by Apple Music, and Apple has released a new AirPod that does live translation through AI. So I'm curious to know if this is a way to promote their live translation, headphones. I don't know. It would be a brilliant way to do it, though, and it would make all the sense in the world from the marketing perspective to me. So either way, all I could tell you is this, Roy, the amount of hype going into this halftime show, I've never seen this much hype for any other halftime show, and I think it's ultimately I think they're going to be very, very successful. That's my thought, but we'll see. If the stadium's half full and their ratings suck for halftime, then I guess the NFL made a bad move, and time will tell. Roy, thanks for the call, brother. Shout out to you. Shout out to Jersey and Indiana. WLS in the building. Amigos, I'm coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to say to you that I really appreciate what you're doing for people and their state of mind and their viewpoints on the airwaves every night. I really do appreciate it.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's continue with the calls. I'm going to go to Tony, Albany, New York, WGDJ. Tony, go for it.
Hey, how you doing, Rich? Nice to finally speak to you.
Thank you. Likewise. What's going on, brother?
No, nothing. It's just kind of disappointing. You were talking about the Bad Bunny thing earlier, and it's, it just seems like it's kind of disappointing, because like you said, how your kids were like into Bad Bunny, and he kind of grew on you, and you became a fan and stuff. It's, we really can't control, that kind of stuff. It got too deep. You know what I mean? With everything.
No,
and
I'm lost. I think people make lots of different choices in how they entertain themselves. And my kids are adults now, right? So I can't tell them what to listen to. And myself, I didn't watch an episode of The Jersey Shore until it was like 2012, right? And it came out in 2009, right? And I didn't because I thought it was just a little bit risque because I had little kids at the time. Right now, I have big kids. One's 20, one's 24. So the whole thing is a different thing. I wouldn't watch that in my house. I was very strict with, what my kids watched growing up. But as adults, the idea, the Bible says, train up your kids in the way they should go and, they won't depart. That's your hope. You teach your kids stuff and then they do what they got to do. Now, the Bad Bunny thing. I grew up watching movies like Boys in the Hood, movies like The Godfather, movies with lots of violence, lots of drugs, lots of sex, lots of rock and roll, all sorts of stuff. And people criticize that, saying, oh, you shouldn't watch rated R movies. It's not very holy. It's not good for your body. It's not good for the culture. But guess what? People like that. I love Scarface. I played Scarface on loop. No lie. Me and my friends when we were teenagers, we knew every word to every scene. That's how much Scarface we were watching. Now, today one of my friends runs a hospital. Today I'm a national radio host. Everybody went in their own direction, right? None of us became Scarface. And And I think so much of what people, don't like about Bad Bunny or any other artist, right? Gangsta rap. These are things that they themselves are consuming in other mediums, whether it's through movies, whether it's through movies like The Departed, right? These are still good movies. I think these are talented actors that make these films. And ultimately, everybody makes a choice of how they're going to consume entertainment. And I would hope all of us are grounded enough in our beliefs and what we do, what we know, that when we do, if we choose to indulge in that type of entertainment, that we know what we believe. So it's not going to sway us. I don't know if that makes sense, Tony.
Yeah. It's one thing for maybe Jerry Jones to weigh in because he's been there, he's had control of the NFL, and it was maybe that venue or that music might have rubbed him the wrong way. But then when you got then it goes up to the presidency of Trump, and we both know. I live in upstate New York. We both know. New York's a mess.
Yeah.
Everybody's flowing. There's a lot of stupid money being made. You know what I mean? But New York's a mess. Okay? And it's just, I think the last thing they should be, worried about
is what's happening at the Super Bowl.
As was what happened at the Super Bowl.
I'm with you.
People that watch the Super Bowl, they tune out. They move. It's not a focus of the game.
Right. No, that's why I said people are buying their beers, they're buying their hot dogs to go into the bathroom, and of course, a lot of people are going to watch it. But I get your point. There's bigger fish to fry, and the point I was making earlier, and I'll repeat it now because I said it 2 hours ago, is 5 years ago, Shakira and Jennifer Lopez headlined the Super Bowl halftime show, and their special guest, who was there for half of the performance, it's only 12 minutes, was Bad Bunny, and they were all taking turns singing in Spanish, doing this, and it was never an issue then. So that's all I'm saying is, where is this ire and this outrage coming from? I think it's misplaced. I think it's just we're mad at something, and we found a bad guy to be mad at, and I just think you're right. It's not productive and it's not helpful. And I'm happy the Turning Point is providing an alternative. Tony in Albany, great conversation. WGDJ in the building, coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.